Welcome to Life Stories. Betrayal, ambition, revenge. What happens when the person you trust the most walks away, leaving you with nothing? Jake had it all: a loving wife, a promising career, and years of hard work finally paying off. But one fateful night shattered his world, exposing a web of deceit that would change his life forever. What would you do if your wife was introduced as another man's girlfriend? How do you rise after losing everything? Stay tuned as we unfold this gripping story of heartbreak, redemption, and justice. Subscribe to our channel to begin today's story with Life Stories. The morning of my promotion was one of the proudest moments of my life. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my tie, taking in the reflection of a man who had spent years striving for this day. Senior Project Manager. The title carried weight, a validation of the long hours, the sleepless nights, and the sacrifices I had made. I had worked tirelessly, proving my worth to Carter Enterprises, often at the expense of time spent with my wife, Lauren. But it had all been worth it. Or so I thought. I turned away from the mirror, heart pounding with excitement as I grabbed my briefcase and rushed downstairs. My mind was already painting a picture of the moment, her eyes lighting up. The way she would throw her arms around me, the way she always used to when we were younger. Before the pressures of life had set in, she was sitting at the kitchen table, a steaming cup of coffee in hand, scrolling through her phone. Sunlight filtered through the window, casting a golden glow on her soft features, her hair falling effortlessly over her shoulder. She looked beautiful, just as she always had. But something was different. "Good morning, love," I said, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. She barely looked up. "Morning," she muttered, her voice flat. I hesitated, but I wasn't about to let her mood dampen the moment. "I have amazing news," I announced, unable to contain my excitement. "I got the promotion. Senior Project Manager." I expected her to leap from her seat, to wrap her arms around me and share in my joy. Instead, she glanced at me briefly, offered a faint smile, and said, "That's nice, Jake. You deserve it." Her words were right, but the feeling wasn't there. Something twisted in my chest. I tried to brush it off. Maybe she was preoccupied with work. Maybe she was stressed. We all had bad days. I told myself I was overthinking, that I had spent so much time striving for this promotion that I had ignored the signs. But in truth, those signs had been there for a long time. Lately, Lauren had been distant. She wasn't the woman who used to wait up for me late at night just to ask how my day was. She no longer laughed at my bad jokes or playfully stole bites from my plate at dinner. Our conversations had grown shorter, our silences longer. She had become more guarded with her phone, more absent in her own home. And I had excused it all. That night, I decided to change things. I wanted to remind her of what we had built together from nothing. I set up a candlelit dinner in our backyard, grilling her favorite meal, salmon with mashed potatoes and asparagus, paired with a bottle of red wine I had been saving for a special occasion. The flickering candlelight cast a warm glow between us as we sat across from each other at the table. "To us," I toasted, raising my glass, "to new beginnings and to all the dreams we're about to achieve together." She lifted her glass but didn't meet my gaze. Taking a slow sip, she barely reacted. I forced a smile, desperate to keep the night from slipping away. "You know, Richard was really impressed with my work today," I continued. "He even pulled me aside and said he sees great potential in me. That means a lot coming from someone like him." For a brief second, something flickered across Lauren's expression, a slight stiffening of her posture. The way she suddenly focused too intently on her plate. Was it discomfort? Nervousness? I swallowed hard. "That's nice," she murmured, still not looking at me. An uneasy feeling crept over me, a whisper in the back of my mind telling me something was wrong. But I pushed it aside. This was a night of celebration, a night to remind her of the love we had always shared. I reached for her hand, squeezing it gently, my thumb brushing against her skin. "I love you, Lauren," I whispered, my voice full of sincerity. "Everything I do for us." For a moment, she was silent. Then, she let out a soft sigh, setting her glass down. "I know, she said simply before withdrawing her hand from mine. The air between us grew heavy, filled with unsaid words. I watched her, confusion flickering across my face. Something was wrong. I could feel it. But little did I know, the nightmare was only beginning. The tension between Lauren and me didn't ease in the days that followed. I tried to convince myself that we were just going through a rough patch. That the stress of work and life had taken its toll on both of us. But the truth was gnawing at me. An unshakable feeling that something had shifted between us. Then came the invitation. Richard Carter, my boss, the man I had spent years trying to impress, had invited me to one of his private corporate gatherings. It was a high-profile event, exclusive to those in his inner circle, the people who truly held power in our industry. It was an honor, one that could open doors for me beyond my new position. Richard invited us to one of his private events. I told her as soon as I walked through the door that evening. It's this Saturday. It's a big deal. These are the people who run things in our industry. She was in the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of wine. For a moment, she didn't respond. Then, slowly, she turned to face me. You want me to come with you? She asked. Her voice carefully measured. Of course, I said, stepping closer. It's important. Richard specifically said I should bring my wife. I want you by my side. Lauren hesitated, her fingers tightening slightly around the stem of her glass. There was something there, something I couldn't name. Fear? Guilt? I don't know, Jake. Those kinds of events aren't really my thing, she said, offering a weak smile. I frowned. Since when? You've always loved social gatherings. She swallowed, forcing a laugh. I guess I've just been feeling tired lately. But if it's important to you, I'll go. I studied her for a moment before nodding. It is important. Thank you. Saturday arrived faster than I expected. I adjusted my cufflinks, watching Lauren as she got ready. She had chosen an elegant black dress. Her makeup flawless. Her hair styled to perfection. She looked stunning, but something about her seemed off. She was unusually quiet on the drive to Richard's mansion. She stared out the window, her hands folded neatly in her lap. I reached for her hand, but she pulled away gently, pretending to adjust her dress. You okay? I asked, glancing at her. She forced a chuckle. It's just a big event. I don't want to embarrass you. You could never embarrass me, I said softly. You're the most beautiful woman in any room, and I'm lucky to have you. She didn't respond. The party was extravagant, filled with influential business leaders and their elegantly dressed partners. Crystal chandeliers illuminated the room, the sound of laughter and clinking glasses echoing around us. Then I heard Richard's voice. Jake, there you are. I turned, smiling, ready to make a good impression. But my smile froze as Richard draped an arm around a stunning woman standing beside him. Meet my girlfriend, he announced proudly. And then, my world stopped. Because standing there, smiling at Richard like she had never known me, was Lauren. The room spun around me. The laughter, the music, the clinking of champagne glasses, all of it faded into a dull hum as I stared at Lauren standing beside Richard. She didn't flinch. She didn't panic. She just smiled. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. I wanted to scream, to demand an explanation, to grab her by the hand and drag her out of that mansion. But I couldn't move. My entire body had turned to stone. Richard chuckled, oblivious to the storm raging inside me. What's the matter, Jake? You look like you've seen a ghost. Lauren tightened her grip on Richard's arm, her nails digging into his sleeve. And that was when I realized, she wasn't going to say anything. She wasn't going to explain. She wasn't going to correct him. She had chosen this. I forced a smile, though my jaw was clenched so tightly I thought my teeth might break. Pleasure to meet you, I finally managed, my voice hollow. Lauren hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. Then, she mirrored my expression. Likewise, the night blurred into a tortuous haze. I moved through conversations I couldn't hear, clinking glasses with people I didn't recognize, nodding at words that meant nothing to me. But all I could see was her. Lauren, laughing at Richard's jokes. Lauren, whispering in his ear. Lauren, the woman who had been my wife. now looking at another man the way she used to look at me. By the time I left that suffocating mansion, I felt like a shell of the man I had been when I walked in. I barely made it home before my legs gave out, and I braced myself against the wall, sucking in a ragged breath. My hands trembled as I loosened my tie. My mind kept replaying the moment, over and over again. Like a cruel joke I couldn't escape. I waited for the sound of Lauren's keys in the lock. Waited for her to come through the door and tell me this was all some kind of sick misunderstanding. But she never came home. And that silence, cold, empty, suffocating, was louder than any betrayal I could have ever imagined. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark, staring at the front door, my mind a battlefield of questions that had no answers. Then, as if fate wanted to twist the knife deeper, I received another blow. Monday morning, I walked into my office only to find an envelope sitting neatly on my desk. My resignation letter, already drafted. Richard wasn't just taking my wife. He was taking my career, too. I clenched my fists, my knuckles turning white. He wanted me to disappear quietly. But he had no idea who he was messing with. Because this wasn't over, not by a long shot. I walked out of Carter Enterprises that day with nothing but a box of my belongings and a heart filled with rage. The whispers of my coworkers followed me down the hallway, their pity burning into my skin like acid. Everyone knew. They had probably known for months. Lauren and Richard hadn't even tried to hide it. I drove aimlessly for hours, my grip so tight around the steering wheel my fingers ached. The life I had built, the career I had sacrificed so much for, the marriage I had cherished, it was all gone. Stolen from me by the very man I had admired. I had never felt so humiliated. I showed up at Shannon's apartment that night. My best friend since college. The moment he opened the door and saw my face, he knew something was wrong. What the hell happened? He asked. Ushering me inside, I sat on his couch, my hands still trembling, and told him everything, every excruciating detail. Lauren's distance, the party, Richard's smug introduction, the resignation letter. When I finished, Shannon let out a low whistle, shaking his head. That bastard really did a number on you. I laughed bitterly. Yeah, he did. Shannon leaned forward, his expression serious. So what are you going to do? I exhaled sharply, rubbing my temples. I don't know. I have nothing left. Shannon. He scoffed. No, Jake. You have nothing to lose. And that makes you dangerous. His words stuck with me. A few days later, I got a call from an unexpected source, Rebecca Carter, Richard's younger sister. Meet me, she said. I have something you need to see. I was suspicious, but curiosity got the best of me. We met at a quiet rooftop lounge, where she slid a thick folder across the table. Richard isn't as untouchable as he thinks, she murmured. He's been stealing from his investors for years. And I have the proof. My pulse quickened as I flipped through the documents. Offshore accounts, bribery, falsified reports. It was all there, laid out in black and white. Why are you telling me this? I asked, studying her carefully. Rebecca smirked. Because my brother screwed me over too. And I want to see him fall. A slow, cold smile spread across my lips. Richard thought he had won. But he had no idea that his downfall had already begun. For weeks, Rebecca and I planned every detail, making sure we would hit Richard where it hurt the most. His empire, his reputation, his illusion of invincibility. And then, the perfect opportunity presented itself. Richard's annual corporate gala, attended by top investors, executives, and media representatives. That was where we would bury him. Not with fists. Not with anger, but with the truth. And this time, there would be no escaping the consequences. The night of the gala arrived. And everything was set. The venue was filled with New York's most powerful figures, investors, business moguls, and reporters waiting to document yet another success story for Richard Carter. But tonight, the story would be different. As Richard stood on stage, raising his glass to toast his so-called legacy, the giant screens behind him flickered to life. Documents appeared, bank statements, fraudulent transactions, secret offshore accounts. The crowd fell silent, Murmurs turned to gasps. People scrambled for their phones, snapping pictures of the evidence that exposed the man they had once admired. Richard's face drained of color. He turned to security, barking orders, but it was too late. His empire had been built on deception, and now it was collapsing in front of his eyes. I stood at the edge of the room, watching it all unfold with quiet satisfaction. Not out of revenge, but out of justice. He had taken everything from me, my wife, my career, my dignity, but now, the world saw him for what he truly was. By morning, Richard Carter was finished. Lawsuits piled in. Investors withdrew their support. His name became synonymous with fraud and disgrace. As for Lauren, she tried to reach out, but I had nothing left to say. She had made her choice, and now she had to live with it. I, on the other hand, was free. Free from the betrayal, the heartbreak, the weight of the past. And for the first time in a long time, I was ready to start over. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Life Stories for more powerful real-life tales. Stay tuned for our next video.